Can you help? Can you help me? Can you help? Self-Helpless! Can you help? Can you help me? Can you help? Self-Helpless! Can you help? Can you help me? Can you help? Self-Helpless!
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Self-Helpless. I'm Kelsey Cook.
I'm Delaney Fisher.
There's no Taylor Tomlinson. That's so weird.
I know, dude, it's so weird. Okay, I feel like I have to be really honest right now because I'm not going to be able to hide it. I accidentally got high about an hour ago.
Delaney!
Telling Emma before you recorded, and I just took a fat nap to try to sleep it off a little bit. But I realized, like, looking at myself in this video right now, there's no way. And I'm feeling, anyway, I just need to put it out there. I grabbed the wrong thing. There's a couple things that I like to take. One is just CBD. One is CBD with a little extra something. I thought I was taking the just CBD because I felt a little headache coming on.
Yeah.
Turns out I took a different one.
Wow.
Kick to it. And so I'm sorry, everybody, I'm accidentally high. And I felt like I had to come clean because I was going to try my best to get through the episode. I just don't know. It's going to come up at some point. I might as well just do it now.
I needed to hear that today. Thank you for that laugh. I love how you just tried to fix a headache and now you're just on a roller coaster.
Like, people are gonna know once I start reading some bullet points. So
Oh God.
I'm
well,
sorry.
Have you ever been high on the podcast before?
I mean, I think one time we did it years ago.
Okay.
Right? But no, I try to not.
Yeah. Oh, this will be fun. Well, this will be real fun.
God. Some might say this is how I'm coping with Taylor's absence.
Sure. Real big
Right?
weed problem now.
Kels, do we have a quotable of the episode?
Okay, we sure do. This is a great quote. In anxious moments, I try to keep in mind that just like the good moments, this won't last forever. And that was said by Dax Shepard, and it was submitted by our helpster, Allison. So thank you for that quote, Allison. That's a great one. And if you want to be able to submit quotes for the show and help us pick episode topics, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/selfhelpless. Maybe you can apply this quote to how you're feeling right now, Del, that in this high and anxious moment you're in.
This too shall
pass.
Oh my gosh, twins.
No.
Oh my gosh. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Allison. It was a lovely gesture. Okay, everybody, are you ready for this? We're talking about introversion and extroversion. I think this has come up a lot, just kind of sprinkled in the podcast the last few months. And so just wanted to dedicate a whole episode to kind of breaking it down. Yeah. And to be honest, I had very kind of basic surfacey knowledge of what this shit even meant. And so I kind of dug into some myths, some myth busting facts, and some other kind of surprising things about introversion and extroversion. So before we kind of get into the basics, obviously, introverts are usually seen as, shy, quiet, more reserved. Extroverts are usually seen as more outgoing and talkative and all that stuff. First of all, Kelsey, let me ask you, do you think you're an introvert or an extrovert? Or there's something I didn't even know existed, which is an ambivert, which is kind of a mix of both?
Yeah, you've been throwing that word around since the episode started, and I realized I've never heard that before. And I'm wondering if maybe I fall more into the ambivert category, but I guess we'll know more by the end of the episode where I think I fall, because it's so situational for me. Like, I think people look at me and go, oh, well, you're a stand-up comedian, you're a performer, you must be an extrovert. Right. But if I'm around certain people, especially if it's people I don't know that well, I can become very, very introverted and feel very drained if I'm around people for too long that I'm not comfortable with.
Yes. Yeah. So I think you just described being an ambivert. Basically, it depends. It can be situational.
Yeah.
It might be hard for friends to tell you they think you're one way or the other. You kind of fall in the middle.
Yeah.
I think, it's so weird. I think I used to think I was an extrovert several years ago. I really thought like, I liked going to parties. I like going to share stories with people and mingle and all that shit.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I'm way on the other end. I feel like I'm way more introverted now than I ever was. And the thought of going to a party to tell a story, I'm already exhausted thinking of that as just an idea. That's just not the last thing on the list of things I want to do ever. But I also think, being a performer for 6.5 years, I think that kind of, shaped how I feel now, or how I am now. I feel like once you like get paid to talk in front of people, for me, that started to be like the last thing I wanted to do in my free time was talk in front of people or just in groups and stuff. I don't know if you feel that way, Kels. Like, did you feel a difference before you started doing stand-up versus now that you're a decade in, basically?
For me, it's always been about who is around me. So before I started doing stand-up, and still now that I do stand-up for a living, if I'm around my best friends, I am very much like, I still want to make them laugh. I will still be very extroverted and very goofy around them. But if I'm around people that I don't know that well, I'm not. I've been told many times that if it's somebody I'm meeting for the first time and I'm just not on, quote unquote, and then they find out I'm a comedian, they're like, oh my God, I wouldn't have known, because I'm not out like tap dancing around for people that I'm just meeting. But it's something I'm curious about that I'm not sure we'll cover this episode, but maybe you know something about it. The difference between your personality in terms of an introvert or extrovert versus your activity preference. Because when I think of you, Del, I think of that your activity preference is to stay home. Like your ideal night is not going out.
Right.
But I don't think of your personality as introverted. I picture when you're in a group of people, you've got such a big personality, you've got so much great energy. So do you see what I mean? Where
it's interesting.
It's almost like within each category, you can fall into different branches.
Right. Well, what you just said, I resonate with, in the sense that I feel pretty extroverted around like my closest friends, my family, whatever. And then when it gets into larger groups, I really take a step back. I mean, I not only am not talkative, people can see me as quite shy. So it's really weird being on both ends of that spectrum, depending on who you're around. So I've definitely experienced that. And I know that this is going to probably be a completely different episode topic at some point, but I also really noticed, especially this past year, I just think by like removing, distractions were removed a lot this past year, obviously. I really noticed that I tend to really absorb other people's energy, whether I'm not trying to, but like, being around certain people or certain situations really like affect me almost immediately. So I don't know if you're like this, but even if somebody's telling me a story about something that may have happened to a family member or a friend or something, my brain just automatically pictures it happening, and all the different situations where that's affecting the person and the people around them without having to. I'm not trying to do this shit. I was like, is that, is that more like people saying that you're an empath or something, instead of like introversion? You know what I mean? Like, where does that lie with that? Because, I talked to Kim about this stuff, and it does not experience that at all.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Like, he can hear a story about something crazy happening or whatever, and I'll feel like, it will knock the wind out of me after hearing about it. And for Cam, it's like somebody just asked me if I wanted a cup of coffee. That was pretty,
right.
So I don't know. That's something too that I would love to dig into at some point, is like the idea of what an empath is, are we all that to some extent? And does that play a role with introversion or extroversion in some way as well?
Totally.
But just a couple interesting facts around this before we get into some other stuff. An unusually high percentage of gifted children are introverts. There are traits of highly intelligent individuals that overlap with introversion, such as sensitivity in social interactions, independence of thought, and the ability to work alone for hours. Things like, we've discussed, school on this podcast before, but school can be noisy, boring, overstimulating environment for an introvert. So often that personality type is not really thriving or welcome in the classroom a lot. They would rather work alone. Some teachers might kind of think they're, acting out or not participating and stuff like that. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah. And I actually have experience with being in a conventional school setting and an unconventional school setting. So up until high school, I was in a conventional classroom, and then I did independent study for most of high school. And I realized that going to school and being around for like a 7 or 8 hour school day versus getting my homework done in 2 hours was a very huge difference to experience. Yeah. And I remember getting a bit, of course everybody does, but feeling really drained in school. Yeah. Sometimes bored, just zombie-like. And how that really felt different when I was doing independent study, because I was the one in control. I could kind of control how fast I would get things done and stuff like that. So I think it's interesting, because I definitely preferred that. I would rather do all of my schoolwork alone and then go do fun stuff outside of school.
I would argue that most students, extrovert or introvert, do feel zombie-like at some point in the day. And we mentioned this on the teachers episode, that studies have shown that at that age range, you're not as productive. Your brain is not functioning as well when you have to wake up at like 7 a.m. and go to school till 3. That age range of people's brains work better to be able to sleep in.
Yes.
It is. I just remember having to get up that early for school, and really, like, especially if it was winter and it was dark outside, it felt like somebody was pulling me out of death. Like, I was so exhausted. And I think a lot of other middle schoolers and high schoolers feel that way.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how my siblings too, how they're doing in school now that everything is virtual versus what was going on conventionally. And all of their grades have gone up. I don't know if that means they're just cheating, Googling the answers. But especially like my little brother is really thriving in this setting and was struggling in certain areas in a conventional school setting. And even I, when I was homeschooled, I finished high school 3 months early. I finished my work. And so I remember like thinking, wow, that's just so weird that I'm doing the same tasks as my friends who are in school for 7 hours every day. Right. And I'm doing them in, a few hours, but I'm still doing the same activities as them when I meet up with them. Just a weird concept. Introverts and extroverts use different sides of their nervous systems. There are 2 sides to the nervous system, the sympathetic side and the parasympathetic side. Sympathetic side is full throttle, daring, inquisitive. Parasympathetic, oh my God, say that 5 times fast.
Say that 5 times fast when you're high.
God, I keep forgetting I'm high, and then I'll realize it, and then I'll try to hide it, and then I realize I can't. The parasympathetic side, on the other hand, prefers rest, relaxation, and contemplation, which of course introverts favor the parasympathetic side. So it's like you're actually engaged in different parts of your brain depending on if you're introverted or extroverted. Introverts have more gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, which is part of the decision-making part of your brain. And they often kind of look before they leap, so to speak. So they would rather observe before taking action. And 1/3 of us are introverts.
Oh, okay.
Only 1/3. I really thought it was maybe more of a 50-50 experience.
Yeah, same.
And oh God, this is a weird one. Introverts are less sensitive to facial expressions and human faces than extroverts are. This implies that some introverts can take or leave humans and don't need human interaction as much. So one of our most basic needs is the contact of others, obviously, but extroverts may need this more than introverts. So in a study, the brains of extroverts lit up far more when they saw human faces rather than a flower, but it seemed that the brain of introverts valued the human face and the flower equally. So one is kind of like, if I see a human today, who the fuck cares? I'll catch him next week. So that's very interesting. And there are introverts who prefer to be around others. It's likely that these introverts choose to be around people who don't exhaust them or demand too much of them socially. And what is really required to enjoy time alone is just a rich inner world and imagination, and the want to do things alone. And many introverts often have these traits, but not all of them. Another one, this is just true. I guess introverts are less likely to be hospitalized due to an accident. Because
they're not Steve-O.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And like they're less likely to be involved in criminal behavior and stuff like that and get arrested, because when you want to go, when you want to go home and read a book and have some tea, there's not much, opportunity for, a drunken public pissing yourself. You know what I mean? That's just going to be off the docket for you.
Right. Not a lot of introverts setting firecrackers off on their balls, Yeah,
exactly.
More an extrovert's speed.
The last one, this is very interesting. Biologists have found that animals also show introverted and extroverted traits. Really I guess, there might be a scared dog and one who's very friendly, but I, again, didn't really think about this as far as, going beyond humans.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
So in the animal kingdom, extroverted animals are more aggressive and get the most females. Extroverts were likely to be but they were seen as a leader of the pack, but these traits often cause them to be killed by their own daring and aggression. And introverted animals obviously had a different sort of advantage, self-preservation, by not drawing attention to themselves. So basically, do you want to get the ladies or do you want to live? Okay, that's basically what we're all trying.
What a rough choice.
Here. Which one? It's tough. By the way, all of that was from, oh God, I will find a credit at the end because I don't want to take credit for that. Kels, hey, I have an idea. I hear there's some pretty cool myth-busting facts about this topic.
Do you?
If you have any? If you happen to have some in your pocket.
It's funny you should ask. Oh man, you are so funny right now. Okay, so I have some myths about introversion and myths about extroversion. So myth number one about introverts is that they lack people skills. Introverts look to the inner world to gain a subjective understanding of how the world works. They prefer to focus on ideas, perspectives, facts, and inner realities before stepping outwards to play a part in their environment. Introversion does not imply a lack of social skills. In fact, sometimes introverts can excel socially because they naturally pause and reflect before speaking. This can be a real advantage in communication. Yes. I mean, I've shared the story on here before about the TV executive that I met, who I get so nervous around people in positions of power in comedy, and she complimented my hair and I didn't know what to say, and so I way overthought it. Like, I was almost to my detriment in that moment to be an introvert and pause for too long because I overthought it. And when she was like, "Oh, your hair's so long," and I just stroked it, was like, yeah, magical. Like, that's not a good look. But yeah, I mean, I do think that there are a lot of other times that pausing before you speak is very advantageous. Myth number two, introverts are shy. Both introverts and extroverts can be shy. There is zero correlation between introversion and shyness. Introversion is about having a subjective inner world focus first, while extroversion is about having an objective outer world focus first. Both introverts and extroverts spend their time in their inner and outer worlds, but everyone prefers one world over the other. In a way, we're all ambiverts. The I or E preference in our personality type code only tells us which word we give the higher priority to. Okay.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. Because I would say, like, I obviously, like you mentioned earlier, if I had the choice to stay in or go out, I'm staying in 9 times out of 10 times.
But there's still 1 out of 10 times that you're going to want to go out.
1 out of 10 times I'll go out, where I have some friends who are complete opposite. 9 times out of 10, they want to go out. And then, know. So, yeah, I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a spectrum. Myth number 4 about introversion, myth number 3. Introverts dislike being around people. This myth is actually being perpetuated by many people who claim to be introverts. As one of my friends, Andrea, said, introverts don't dislike being around people any more than a teenager dislikes spending their whole paycheck on Starbucks and Sephora. The thing is, it's just not as fun to shop when you're out of money to spend. It's in our best interest to spend it wisely.
Aha.
Yeah.
Yes.
So introverts don't inherently dislike socializing. They just need it in smaller doses.
Exactly. And they need to plan it out. Like I can't see a friend every night of the week.
And there needs to be, at least for me, I think Taylor mentioned this too, that there needs to be some scheduled downtime between social interactions. Like I am able to see a couple friends in a day, but I do need to know that there's going to be a little bit of a break in between for me to gather myself and, just reset a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why, sometimes people who like traveling can be hard with a group of friends or something. If everybody is, some people are introverted, some people extroverted, some people are kind of both. It's like some people might take that, the needs for downtime as like, oh, they don't want to have fun with us or, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Like, no, I just need a nap because the outside world is very exhausting for me.
Yes. And one of the more basic definitions that I've heard of introversion versus extroversion is that introverts around certain people feel depleted, whereas extroverts can feel replenished.
Yes.
Like if you are to look at yourself as a battery, basically.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I can feel really energized around like one friend or very, very small group and very depleted if it's a much larger group, even if it's people I know, actually. If it's too large of a group, I'm not going to be able to stay long.
Actually, you're so right.
They'll probably just think that I'm like bored or annoyed and I'll just be tired, Yeah.
It
won't go well.
Even back when we used to be able to record at the studios before COVID, even though I was so comfortable around you and Tay and whichever producer was in the room, if we were recording multiple episodes, I would go pee in between episodes. And I just I loved that feeling so much of just being by myself for even 30 seconds to just kind of like take a breath, check in, and then go back out there. But yeah, even just little breaks help a lot.
Oh, dude, I've literally turned down a job offer because it was too close to too many people. Like the location of my desk would be like very much on display, having to interact with a lot of people. So I stayed in a job where I was literally in the back of a little room where nobody could find me or see me. And that was where I was happy.
Yeah.
Like, no thanks. I can't do it.
That's so interesting. When I was a receptionist / admin assistant for a company in Seattle for years, I think people look at the receptionist as they are the social butterfly of the office, and they're the person that you can just go take a break from your work with to socialize with.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that then you don't get to decide when you're being socialized with and not. Like you said, if your desk is surrounded by a lot of other people, you don't really have that control. People can just come up to you at any time. Right. And so I remember just kind of feeling like a wet cat sometimes because everybody else seemed to have control of that. They would do their own work and then they would want to come talk to me. But there would be times where I just wanted to do my own work, and you could tell that people just wanted to come up and like hang out at the receptionist's desk and like eat some candy, because I always had a bowl of candy up there, just like eat some candy, take a break. And I just sometimes was like, oh God, like I just don't want to talk right now. I'm so tired and like I don't feel like being social. So yeah, that position I think is best for extroverts for sure.
Oh, anybody, if there's an introvert working in customer service, our heart goes out to you. We understand.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yes.
And myth number 4, this is kind of what we just talked about. Introverts dislike people in general. Introverts are just as capable of human affection as extroverts are. Some people dislike other people, but that technically has nothing to do with being an introvert or extrovert. Totally agree. And myth number 5 about introversion, wanting to stay home and binge Netflix instead of going to a party makes you an introvert. Nope, that just means you like Netflix, which 90% of the US population does. There are plenty of extroverts who would rather relax in their pajamas watching Stranger Things than go to a party. So let's get into some myths about extroversion now. Number 1, extroverts lack depth. Extroversion literally means that an individual draws energy from interacting with the objective environment. This can mean interacting with people, objects, situations, activities, or experiences. There's absolutely no reason why extroverts would lack depth or have less depth than introverts. Gaining energy from interaction with the environment does not mean one is incapable of complex thought, seriousness, or emotionally profound feelings or experiences. Myth number 2, extroverts feel a compulsion to talk incessantly. That's funny because that is kind of how I picture extroverts, just somebody who just is on all the time and wants to dominate conversation. On the whole, extroverts tend to be more talkative than introverts, although this is certainly not true across the board. However, they hardly feel a need to fill every bit of space with conversation. How extroverts gain their energy differs from one to another as well. Some extroverts, ESTPs, gain energy from direct physical interaction with their environment. They would probably rather go rock climbing or play a sport than sit around talking. Other extroverts, ENTJs, are very task-oriented and would rather be accomplishing a goal than engage in ceaseless small talk. Some extroverts enjoy small talk as a pathway to deeper discussion, while others enjoy raw, intimate conversations that deep dive into the human experience.
Interesting. So what's interesting is like if I had the choice to do an activity on a weekend or something, I will choose to do something outside and like more active than I would to stay in. And so it's weird because I feel like that's maybe more of an extroverted activity, but I'm also doing it in an introverted way where I'm like, no, I would rather go on like a hike today than watch a movie inside or something. But like I want to go like either by myself or with one person. You know? So it feels like an introverted activity, but kind of getting out there in, you know, I am out in the world, but I am also trying to be out in the world while protecting like my own energy with my little mini environment, you know, that I'm
your bubble.
My bubble. Gotta protect the
bubble. Yes. It's the spectrum. That makes sense. Myth number 3, extroverts are confident and outgoing. Extroverts and introverts are both equally capable of being confident or outgoing. There's no sorry. I'm gonna say sorry to our listeners. It's been a day, and I know I'm stumbling on words.
You're stumbling. It is what it is today, people. We're fucking losing it. We're losing. The show is crumbling.
It is what it is, people. I'm sorry. There is no link between extroversion and confidence or introversion and lack of confidence. In fact, clinical psychologist Linda Blair states, extroversion has nothing to do with confidence. It has to do with pressure and arousal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I have talked to my introverted friends before, and they often voice a lack of confidence and sometimes feel like they overcompensate with that by being more talkative and outgoing in social situations. So, and I've also met people who are very, very quiet, but they're very confident. That quiet
confidence.
Yeah, the big dick energy, you know, where they're just in the corner and like, I bet they have something cool to say, but you know, I'm not going to ask them because I'm also over here not talking.
Right. I thought you were going to say, I bet they have something cool in their pants. You went a different direction.
Right.
Probably both.
So we got all that information from Introvert Daily and Psychology Junkie. So thank you so much for those wonderful articles and information from what we just discussed. All right, let's get into some other stuff, shall we?
I'm sorry, I cannot take you seriously. Hi, you were so
sorry. I'm so sorry. This was seriously an accident. I never ever do this when I gotta be in front of people. Or
right.
This is, oh boy.
Anyway. I'm sure our listeners are getting a little kick out of it.
Oh, you guys, I hope, listen, I love you, and I try to be professional, but sometimes I can't.
It feels like if you got off school early and you came home and mom's like already drunk on wine and you're like, oh, I don't usually see it like this. I feel like our listeners are going to be like, oh, this is not the norm.
Would you have been able to tell if I didn't tell you up top that like Delaney's a little loopy right now?
Honestly, I'm so loopy and I'm dead sober that I maybe wouldn't have. You probably could have gotten a lot by me right now.
We're slowly we can joke about how we're slowly morphing into the same person.
Yeah. I don't know how that happened.
Just be one screen at some point. Okay, anyway. You guys, let's talk about the different types of introversion, shall we? Or different types of introvert. Social introversion keeps some introverts home. Thinking introversion refers to individuals who are pensive and self-reflective, but not all introverts are alike. So the signs that you are an introvert might be a calm demeanor. Introverts also tend to keep people grounded, which helps when, things get chaotic. They might be really good organizers. They tend to give their full attention to even the smallest details without missing anything. They often dislike interruptions and intrusions, but really, who doesn't? I mean, that just sounds like stressful no matter who you are.
Yeah.
And are always kind of thinking and reflecting before taking action. I definitely resonate with that a lot because I'm somebody who needs to collect all of my data before making a decision. I don't really just like, ooh, I'm feeling spontaneous. Let me go.
Yeah.
Let me move over here today or whatever. I'm like, no. Let me take a look at the hard facts. Let me see the statistics. Let me see the articles. Let me see the experiments before doing anything, whether this is, my personal life or my professional life. Like before I make any kind of like business decisions, no fucking way am I going in not knowing some information. Like I need that for myself.
Yeah, I'm even at the level of if I'm going to go out to eat, I look up several different restaurants. I look through all the menus. To me, that feels like a lot of pressure to make the right choice.
Right.
I don't just like to waste a meal out. I'm very, very researched, very thorough.
Yeah. What sounds the best for the taste buds ahead of time. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It makes sense. Do you want to read some stuff, more extrovert info?
Yes. So here are some signs that you are an extrovert. You admire crowds. Extroverts are comfortable in groups and are happiest when given attention. When it comes to meetings and discussions on projects, they tend to freely voice out their opinions and thoughts without any reluctance. They love variety and adapt well. They like an ongoing process of people, tasks, and work environments which make them adaptable to any situation. They're great networkers. They do not wait to be introduced, but rather introduce themselves and get the ball rolling in any event and function. And they get bored and impatient when work gets slow and repetitive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, this is interesting. I even remember having when I, had my day job and stuff, having conversations with friends where I'm like, I love the fact that I could just sit in the back of the room all day. Nobody really comes up to me. I do my work on my own schedule. I eat lunch. I go home. Goodbye. Yeah. And then they're like, no, I want to be moving around. I want to be putting stuff on people's desks and talking to them and all that. And like, oh, I would have to call out sick for a week if I had to do that, every day. It'd be too much. But I, of course, went through those phases when I was younger. So I've done those jobs, but
of course, yeah.
Prefer not to.
Yeah. And then an ambivert is a person whose personality has a balance of extrovert and introvert features. You feel comfortable in social settings, but also value your alone time. In the case of group settings, ambiverts can provide a much needed balance to the social dynamic. Signs that you might be an ambivert: you're a good listener and communicator. Ambiverts know when to speak up and when to listen. And this is the best indicator. Your friends have a hard time classifying you as an introvert or an extrovert. Yeah. And if you're still having trouble identifying where you stand, answer this. This is from the Science of People. So if you think of yourself and you think, I'm drawn to people, I get energy from social gatherings, and I'm fairly outgoing, chances are you're an extrovert. if you think of yourself and think it's draining to be around lots of people, I prefer peace, solitude, and quiet time. I usually crave alone time in my free time. You're likely more of an introvert. And then if you think of those things and think it depends, probably an ambivert.
Yeah. So now, what's the consensus of where you think you fall on this spectrum, Kels?
Ambivert.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, I guess if somebody was like giving us a diagnostic right now, so, you know, if there was an expert giving us some kind of test, I would probably come back as an ambivert, but I think I really swing more towards introvert.
Yeah. Well, before COVID, I thought I was much more of an introvert, but I just think it's about balance, probably for everybody, but I felt that strongly when the quarantine was so intense and I was suddenly living alone for the first time in 8 years and didn't have my job, and my job is such a social thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I need people way more than I thought. Like, I'm not as big of an introvert as I thought, because this is really hard for me to go more than, I don't know, a day or two without having some sort of human interaction.
Yes, absolutely. And it makes sense. You know, I think, I've kind of talked about on the show before where I feel like, whether I'm making a new friend or something, or just conversations with friends, or just the expectations of how often you might connect with a friend, how that can be so different, where it's like, I'll talk to, somebody once or twice a year, and it's like, no big deal. It feels like, we catch up. We talked recently, where I know some of my friends I communicate with more, and it all just kind of depends on like what everybody's expectation is of friendship, or how often you think you should be communicating. And I think that's all stuff that is super valuable to like talk about up front. There's been situations where like a new friend has like, I've met somebody new and they want to be my friend, and I also want to be their friend. And we have completely different expectations of how often we should be talking or seeing each other.
Yes.
Where I'm like, listen, friend, if I see you every couple months, or something, you're still a close friend to me. If I talk to you twice a year, like, you're still very close to me. And even if I'm not talking to you every day, I'm really thinking about you and all that. Where, somebody who might not know that's how I feel could get really maybe upset or offended that I'm not like trying to text them all the time or see them once a week and all of that.
Right.
And so I think it's all of this is just about communication with people, whether it's friends, your romantic partner, coworkers, whatever. Like, hey, I'm just a little bit of an introvert. I'm just nothing personal, Yeah. And I think those conversations are important, and I don't think we have them enough. I think we make assumptions about people's behaviors and how that must, reflect on us somehow. And it's really just a personal preference.
Totally. Yeah. Well, good topic pick, Del. I liked it.
Yeah. I didn't know much about it.
I didn't either. I really feel that the ambivert thing, totally new concept to me, and that it feels like it fits.
I'm like, I've heard these words thrown around for my entire life. Never thought to give it a goog.
Yeah. Like, give it a goog, babe. Give it a goog. We have an iTunes review of the episode. This was submitted by Andrea Shauna. She says, I couldn't have found this podcast at a better time. I'm only about halfway through the podcast, but I loved it from the first episode I listened to. I found it because I fell in love with Taylor's stand-up special and searched to see if she had a podcast, and it has made such a huge difference in my life. On top of all the challenges 2020 has brought everyone, I've dealt with my mom's cancer coming back. I'm so sorry. My parents splitting up. My school, I moved across the country for closing forever, and the end of a 5-year relationship right before we were going to buy a house and get married.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, my God. And this podcast has been such a healing experience for me, and I can't stop recommending it to people. I don't even use Apple Music, but I got on here just so I could leave a review.
Oh, my gosh. That is Andrea. So thoughtful, and I'm so sorry. Good Lord. That was all in 1 year?
Jesus. Yeah, it sounds like it. I am so sorry. We are sending you a hug through your speakers. Virtual hug. My God.
I'm still, when I read stuff like this, I'm still like so grateful that anything that we have said or, done on the podcast has helped somebody in any way feel a bit better during a tough time. That is really the core reason we do this. I mean,
for sure. Yeah. I hope things get better for you, Andrea, and thank you for taking the time to leave such a sweet review. That's really, really kind. Oh boy. Right. Okay, so segments.
Yes, let's hear it.
I have just a recommendation. I talked about Promising Young Women, which is a great movie, a couple episodes ago, and I also wanted to recommend the Britney Spears documentary that is going viral. Everybody's been talking about it. It's on Hulu. It's part of a series with the New York Times, and it is just so eye-opening. And I think if you're somebody who's around my age, if you came up with Britney Spears being this huge music idol of yours, loving her music, and then obviously seeing in more recent years stuff happening with her that just feels very off and like very confusing. It really does a deep dive into the conservatorship that she's under with her dad and the legal process of her trying to get out of that. And it's just, man, it's so wild to see, because it kind of takes you back to her childhood. And it's like, remember, like, this is where she came from. She came from this tiny town, and just seeing, like, so wholesome, so sweet. And the way that the world kind of tore into her life, the way that paparazzi followed her all the time, it's just, there's like, I don't think a human can go through that and not snap. I don't think that, like, nature versus nurture, I think 100% like non-nurture. Like, obviously not, I'm just saying nurture sounds like the wrong word here because it wasn't nurturing, but I'm saying her environment, I think, did this. And it's just awful. And anyway, it's a very fascinating documentary, and I highly recommend.
Where can you watch it?
Hulu.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. It's like an hour and 15 minutes or something like that.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I guess are you done with your segment skills?
Yes.
I didn't even ask. Okay.
Yes, I'm done. Yeah, go watch.
Thanks for the rec. I have a good shit. I just want to give my grandparents a shout out.
Oh, okay.
They do not listen to the show. They don't know. They don't know what a podcast is. I try to explain it like it's a radio show on the computer, but they don't really have a computer. Anyway, I did a little drive-by social distance visit with them recently, and I didn't realize that they're celebrating their 65th wedding anniversary this in the next like few weeks. And so oh my gosh, what a number. That
is staggering.
What a time to, I mean, they're both well, my grandpa's in his 90s and my grandmother is almost there too. But I immediately asked, because I told them about our elopement and stuff coming up, and I just asked, like, how did this what's the secret to this longevity?
Yeah.
And my grandpa said his advice was just go for it and hang in there.
Oh,
that was my grandpa's advice.
Cute.
And then my grandma's advice was when he starts nagging, just tell him to shut the hell up. That was her. And they didn't say it that way. They have an Australian and Irish accent, so they said it in a much more precious way. But
it sounds sassy, and I like it.
Yeah, very sassy. Anyway, so that's my good shit. Happy 65th.
Happy 65th. Wow.
Crazy.
I wanted to also plug a couple of things. So comedy clubs are starting to open back up, most of them at limited capacity, and it's very exciting to be able to go back on the road a bit and get back out there. So for our helpsters who are in Philly, I'm going to be at the Helium in Philly at the end of March, and then I will also be headlining Tacoma Comedy Club and Spokane Comedy Club in April. And if you go to kelseycook.com, you can get your tickets there. The shows, I'm also, by the time this comes out, this will have already passed, but also headlining Spokane Comedy Club for Valentine's Day, and the show already sold out, and so they added a second show. So if you are in those cities, if you're in Philly, Spokane, Tacoma, get tickets fast, like get them when you can, because since they are limited seating, there are not as many available per show. So jump on that. And I'm so excited because my virtual makeup workshop keeps selling out. And so now I'm doing it every other week. And if you would like to be on the list for that, you can DM me on Instagram at Kelsey Cook Comedy, and I will put you on the list.
Yay. Amazing.
Yay.
And then I just want to plug one of my wonderful clients who just completed my coaching program. Shout out to Carrie Kiefer. And she is a massage therapist in Paso Robles, California area, but she also sells these incredible natural products. She makes like magnesium wands for headaches and stuff that like make your headaches go away. She does bath teas and balms and everything. So I just wanted to give her a shout out that if you happen to be in that area, you have access to her products and stuff, and you can find her at kerikiefermassage.org. That's KERIKEEFER massage.org, and all kinds of information. Also, if you want to book a massage therapist, you can get a massage from her and then get some of her products. And she sources everything locally. I had such a blast working with her, and she's incredibly knowledgeable and experienced in this area. And she's been making these products for herself for like 20 years, she said, and decided to turn it into a business, and she's doing really well. So I'm really proud of her, and go check her out and send her some love.
Cool. Well, we hope you guys are staying safe and feeling healthy and having a good day, and we will talk to you next week.
Talk to you soon. Love you so much. Sorry about the high accident. Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys so much for listening to Self-Helpless. We really appreciate it and would love anything you can do to help the show grow and get the word out. So if you could leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, that helps us move up the iTunes charts. If you can tell a friend, a coworker, a family member, anybody that you think would love the podcast, you can also screenshot an episode and share it in your Instagram, in your Instagram stories. Anything helps. Also, if you want more of the show, if you want bonus episodes, if you want to be able to be more interactive and help choose podcast topics, you can go to patreon.com/selfhelpless and join there. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Kelsey Cook Comedy, on Twitter at Kelsey Cook. You can go to my website, kelseycook.com, which has links to my online makeup course. You can listen to my album, Savor It, on Spotify and iTunes, and you can watch my foosball web series on YouTube called Wrists of Fury. How about you guys? Where can people find you?
You can follow me at Taylor Tomlinson on Instagram and Twitter. My website is ttomcomedy.com. And you can watch my 1-hour special streaming on Netflix right now called Quarter Life Crisis.
Awesome. And you can find me at DelaneyFisher.com. That's where you'll find information about my one-to-one consulting and my online courses. So basically, if you're a business owner, podcaster, or comedian, and you're looking to either start those things or grow those things, you can reach out to me for more information. I also have an email list at DelaneyFisher.com where I share my favorite tools, tips, treats, and free shit. And then we just want to say a big special thank you to our wonderful editor, Emma Erdbrink, and our fantastic associate producer, Humaira Nawaz.
And you can find everything that we all just mentioned at selfhelplesspodcast.com.